few months ago, I experienced something that still leaves me with a deep sense of unease. I've been working as a private driver for several years, and I much prefer night shifts. The streets are empty, traffic almost non-existent, and often, passengers tip better. There's a price to pay, though. Some nights stick with you and not in a good way. At that time, I didn't have a dash cam installed in my car, but that night became the main reason I wanted one. The evening started like any other. Me and my old 2005 Volvo, a bit battered but very reliable, cruising down the almost empty city streets. It was just after 1 a.m. when I got a ride request from a convenience store nearby. It seemed like a routine job, but as soon as I accepted the call, I felt something stirring inside me. A strange feeling, a mix of discomfort and unease I couldn't explain. When I arrived in front of the store, I immediately realized something was off. The shop was closed, all the lights were out, and the parking lot was completely empty. There wasn't a soul in sight, no cars. I almost wondered if I had the wrong address. But then I saw a man walking out of the store. He wore a worn-out hoodie with the hood up, dirty and ragged, with obvious tears on one sleeve. His movements were nervous and jerky, almost spasmodic, like he was trying to escape from an invisible presence chasing him. He kept glancing behind him, like he feared someone might find him at any moment. My gut told me not to let him in, to cancel the ride and leave immediately. My finger was already hovering over the cancel button. For some reason, maybe curiosity or duty, I didn't. He got in silently, and from that moment on, I knew I'd made a mistake. Usually, passengers get distracted by their phones or stare out the window. He didn't. He stared at me through the rearview mirror, never blinking. It was a kind of stare that makes you uncomfortable, like he was looking straight through you. To break the heavy silence, I turned on the radio, trying to bring some normalcy. But as soon as the music started playing, his low, hoarse voice cut through the air. "Turn it off," he ordered coldly and authoritatively. I obeyed, tightening my grip on the wheel as my heart started pounding. After a long moment of silence, the tension broke when he asked, "Have you ever picked up someone you shouldn't have?" The question caught me off guard, and I laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood. But he didn't respond. He just leaned back and muttered something unintelligible. Then he started telling a confused and fragmented story. He said he used to be a driver like me, but quit after some criminals stole valuable things from his car. He spoke with difficulty. His words were slurred and sometimes nonsensical, but I caught the gist. What disturbed me the most was that he smiled while telling that story, as if it was funny. When he finished by saying, "It's weird how much trust you put in someone sitting right behind you," something inside me shifted. I started seeing him not as just a strange customer, but as a potential threat. The rest of the trip was a stream of disconnected words and unsettling phrases. Sometimes he seemed to talk to someone else, apologizing and repeatedly saying he didn't mean to do something bad. He was confused, scared, maybe even dangerous. There were only a few minutes left to his destination, when suddenly he shouted that I'd taken a wrong turn. The GPS clearly showed we were on the right path, but I slowed down and decided to stop just in case. He told me to pull over. My hands were shaking as I did. Right then, in the rearview mirror, I saw flashing lights from a police car approaching slowly. The passenger ducked down, almost lying across the seat, trying not to be seen. He stayed like that too long, then lifted his head and said, "You got lucky today." Then he opened the door and vanished into the darkness. I didn't have the courage to continue my shift that night. Only a few weeks later, while browsing online, I falls asleep, that numbness and tingling. Now, imagine feeling that constantly, right in your chest, like a warning alarm that never stops ringing. Every unexpected noise triggered it. A honking car, a door slamming, even the rustling of leaves outside. It felt like my nervous system was perpetually on high alert, ready to jump at any moment. Living like that in a noisy city was unbearable. I couldn't focus, couldn't relax, and sleep became a battleground. Anxiety and panic attacks became frequent visitors. The place I had once dreamed of was now suffocating me. So, about 3 years ago, I made a decision that changed everything. I packed up what I could and left the city behind. I sought silence and solitude in a small cabin, tucked deep within the forests of the Pacific Northwest. I won't say exactly where, partly for privacy, partly because some things are better left unspoken. The cabin was surrounded by towering trees and endless wilderness. The silence there wasn't just quiet, it was profound, almost sacred. The only sounds were the whisper of the wind through the branches, the occasional call of a distant bird, and the crackling of the fire I kept burning to fend off the cold. At first, the silence felt strange, even unsettling. I found myself hyper-aware of every tiny noise. The creaking of the wooden floorboards beneath my feet, the distant snap of a twig outside, the soft rustling of leaves. My senses were suddenly tuned to an entirely new level of awareness. But over time, that silence became my sanctuary. It gave me space to breathe, to heal. The trauma that had once consumed me began to loosen its grip. Quiet allowed me to face the shadows inside my mind, the fears and memories I had tried to bury. The nights were long and sometimes lonely. I missed human contact and the city's energy. But the forest taught me patience, resilience, and the power of stillness. I learned to find comfort in the gentle sounds of nature, in the rhythm of the seasons, and in the steady beat of my own heart. Living in that remote place forced me to confront myself in ways I never had before. I began journaling, meditating, and slowly piecing together the fractured parts of my soul. Each day, I felt a little stronger, a little more whole. The cabin was supposed to be my safe haven, a quiet escape from the noise and chaos of the city, and the painful memories I carried. Nestled deep in the wilderness, it was where I hoped to find peace. But solitude in the forest brought a new kind of fear I hadn't anticipated. At first, the sounds were familiar and comforting. The creaking of branches in the wind, distant howls from wild animals, and the gentle rustling of leaves. But over time, those sounds were joined by something unsettling. Faint tapping at the window late at night. Whispers that seemed to float just beyond hearing. Footsteps crunching on dry earth when no one else should have been near. One cold night, I awoke to soft knocking on the cabin window. My heart pounded as I lay frozen, trying to convince myself it was a tree branch swaying. When I peeked out, the glass was foggy and empty, no sign of anything or anyone. Yet the feeling of being watched lingered. The next morning, I discovered footprints around the cabin, large and unfamiliar, too big to be any animal I knew. They didn't follow a clear path, but wandered into the thick woods. They looked almost human, but distorted, like something unnatural. I tried to explain it away, maybe animals, maybe my imagination, but the unease grew. Shadows flickered just outside my vision, and sometimes I heard my name whispered on the wind. Sleep became a battle. Nightmares haunted me, running through the forest, chased by an unseen force closing in. One evening, while sitting by the fire, I heard a low guttural growl from the woods. Grabbing my flashlight, I stepped outside. The beam cut through the darkness, but I saw nothing except the swaying trees.